Do we just need a 4 for the quorum?
Yeah, we're good.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Robin Collins, and I'm the Planning and Zoning Director. Welcome to the regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on March 22nd, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. We're going to start off with a roll call. Clerk?
Harmon?
Here.
Larson?
Here.
Boutros?
Here.
Zamora?
Here.
Byrne is absent.
Let the record show there is a quorum. First item on the agenda tonight is the election of officers. We will be electing a chair and a vice chair. So I'm just going to read through real quickly what the duties of the chair and the vice chair are. The chairperson of the commission shall preside at all meetings of the commission at which he or she is present. Said person shall conduct public hearings and other public and official meetings held by the commission. The chairperson shall exercise general guidance and supervision over the business and operation of the commission and shall present to the commission such matters as, in his or her judgment, require the attention of the commission. The chairperson shall execute all formal documents on behalf of the commission and shall at all times represent the commission in the absence of any duly appointed alternate. The chairperson shall appoint such committees as the commission may direct and may appoint additional committees as deemed necessary to accomplish the work of the commission. The duty of the vice chair. In the absence of the chairperson of the commission, the vice chairperson of the commission shall accede to the duties and obligations of the office of the chairperson of the commission. So those are the duties. Do I have any nominations for a chair?
I would like to nominate Commissioner Zamora as chair.
We have one nomination for Zamora. Any others? And a second for Alex Zamora. Okay. So we have you want to put those as a motion and a second? Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Boutros and a second by Commissioner Harmon for Alex Zamora as chair. Any further discussion? Clerk, will you call the roll?
Harmon?
Yeah.
Larson?
Yes.
Boutros?
Yes.
Zamora?
Yep.
Congratulations, you are the chair.
Thank you. Okay.
Want me to move now? Congratulations.
So we will continue to the nominations for the vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Commissioner Larson.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Can I second myself?
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Boutros for the nomination of Commissioner Larson as the vice chair and a second by Commissioner Larson. Any further questions or discussion?
I was going to nominate Commissioner Harmon.
Okay.
If you want
Okay, we have a
an option, yeah.
another nomination for Commissioner Harmon. Do we need to do a vote on the first one first, or?
Actually, a motion.
It's a nomination.
So, if you have a motion and a second, then take a vote.
Okay. So does anyone want to put those into, either one of those into a motion?
I move that Commissioner Larson be vice chair.
Okay, do we have a second?
Well, I'm not opposed to Harmon being the vice chair. I mean, I'm not opposed either way.
Okay, if we don't have a second, that'll fail due to a lack of a second. Do we have a motion for Commissioner Harmon to be vice chair?
I would make a motion for Commissioner Harmon to be vice chair.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
I'd second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Zamora for Commissioner Harmon to be vice chair. We have a second from Commissioner Larson. Any further questions or discussion? Clerk, will you call the roll?
Harmon,
Yes.
Yes.
Boutros,
No.
Zamora.
Yes.
Motion passes. We now have a new chair and a commission and a vice chair. Welcome. As the chair, Chair Zamora, if you want to go ahead and continue with the agenda.
Yeah, thank you, Director Collins. All right, so we're moving on to item, Roman numeral 2, appointment of Sarah Davis as secretary and clerk for the commission. So I would entertain a motion, for that.
I make a motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second for Sarah's appointment?
Second?
Second from Commissioner Boutros. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those, opposed? And, all right. Sarah, you've been appointed. All right, so then moving on the agenda to item 3 is a conflict of interest declaration from any of the commissioners.
I just know a family who owns the lot near one of the houses, but I don't think that will interfere with anything.
Okay. Thank you for stating that. Okay. Yeah. All right, any other conflicts of interest? All right, there's no special presentations, so we will move on to item 5, which is the consent calendar, specifically the approval of approve the amendment to resolution 01-10, updating the bylaws for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that was in our packet.
I would like to discuss that a tiny bit.
Okay.
So in light of the couple banks going under recently, I didn't think it wise for us to push to have a meeting every single month. I still think it should be bi-monthly, but I just wanted to bring it up for discussion for everyone here, because I don't think we're immune to it, although it was the 13th or 14th fastest growing city in all of America. I don't think we're immune to financial crisis. We are still one of the states that people are fleeing to. We're like number 3 or 4 for the fastest growing, but it just didn't seem wise from a planning and zoning to just pump out projects for the sake of pumping them out unless we had like a good reason. So if planning and zoning had a good reason for me, I'm willing to hear it. I just wanted to put a concern out there.
Commissioner Larson, what part are you referring to specifically?
In it says that we're gonna have meetings every month instead of bi-monthly. And then also I would suggest it not be on Wednesdays if possible, push to Thursdays.
I will defer
It says
to-
on, sorry,
Yeah, just on, sorry.
Article 3, Meeting 1, Section 1, once a month on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers.
I will defer to Director Collins.
Thank you, Chair Zamora. I believe that was just left over in these bylaws from last time. We actually just had a calendar approved through City Council, and the Planning and Zoning Commission is actually only meeting every other month. And the hearing examiner, so there's 2 meetings a month. One is the hearing examiner and one is the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission is only meeting every other month.
Okay. Okay, I feel like I had an email that said we're meeting once a month, so, but yeah, if we're doing every other month, that seems reasonable to me.
And I guess I would ask for clarification. I believe that it is, staff have the option, if there's nothing on the agenda, that we administratively you all can choose not to have a meeting in that specific scheduled time. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair Zamora, let me step back one second. First, Debbie, can I ask you, did we approve the calendar? Now that I'm thinking, maybe we did go back to having them meet monthly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we did. So I retract that statement. Originally, it was every other month.
Yep.
We did go to every month, and it's because we have a backlog right now of applications that have been waiting to go to Planning and Zoning Commission, because there are certain applications that the hearing examiner cannot hear, such as annexations and comp plan amendments. So those applications, some of those have been waiting for months for the P&Z to be reactivated. So currently, we will be meeting monthly on a basis as needed. If we don't have something on the agenda, then we're not gonna push it forward and have a meeting. We'll cancel the meeting. But until we can get this backlog through, it's felt necessary to have those meetings monthly right now.
And can you quantify how big the backlog is?
Commissioner Larson, right now, we probably have, Planning and Zoning Commission booked with applications through June. And each one has about 4 public hearings.
Okay. It's like 12, 15-ish.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about this, resolution?
I just have one. Were we changing the meetings till 6 o'clock instead of 7? Isn't that what we talked about? Or that was an email we got, I think?
Chair and Commissioner Harmon, yes, we are changing them, just recently had that approved through City Council as well.
Okay.
Due to the amount of public hearings, we felt it was necessary to start them a little earlier.
I like it.
Yeah, it shows on April 12th, we start at 6.
All right. Any further, discussion around this resolution? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the amended, the amendment to this resolution 01-110.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 01-10.
There's a motion from Commissioner Harmon and a second from Commissioner Boutros. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Amendment passes. Thank you. All right, there's no old business, so we'll move on to new business, and I'm gonna read this statement, our opening statement. A quasi-judicial hearing involves the consideration of a land use request such as an annexation, rezone classification, and an approval for a subdivision preliminary plat. The public hearing procedures as required by the Idaho Code are as follow. Oral and written testimony will be accepted from those who have signed in to speak prior to the hearing being declared open. When providing testimony, please come to the podium and state your name and address, which will be included in the record. Staff will first present a report regarding the application being considered. Then we'll move into public testimony. The applicant or the applicant's representative will present a summary of the request, about 10 minutes. Testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by those in a neutral position, and finally, those in opposition to the request. Note, all public testimony will be limited to 5 minutes or less. The applicant will be offered the opportunity to provide rebuttal testimony. After the rebuttal testimony is given, the public testimony portion of the public hearing will be closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed. And with that, we'll move to the first action item on here, which is case number ANN 22-000022, SUP 22-000029, and CPM 22-000010 Copper Point. Do I need to read the whole statement that's on here?
Yes,
Okay.
Chair and Commissioner.
A request by Gallantry Rockwell and Associates on behalf of the property owner of Rockbury 88 LLC for an annexation of approximately 8.53 acres and adjacent right-of-way with a proposed R3 high-density residential zoning designation to include the approval of a development agreement associated with ANN 22-000022. Concurrently, the applicant is requesting a comprehensive plan map amendment from medium-density residential to high-density residential to include approval of resolution number 422-22 associated with CPM 22-000010 and approval of special use permit SUP 22-000029 for Copper Point multifamily development to construct 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments with a total of 215 units and includes a clubhouse and play area. The subject properties are located at 4125 and 4211 South Florida Avenue, parcels R27474 and R27475, Caldwell, Idaho. All right, and with that, I will ask for the staff report.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. The project location is 8.53 acres located on the southeast corner of Ustick Road and Florida Avenue. The applicant is proposing parcel to be annexed into the city with an R3 zone, which is the high-density residential zone. The applicant is also requesting a comprehensive plan amendment to reflect the future designation of the parcels to be high-density residential, along with the approval of a special use permit for multifamily development and the allowance of keeping the buildings to the southwest adjacent to the single-family residence, consistent with the remainder of the development being 36 feet in height. These are photos that were taken on March 3rd of the subject site. Here's a concept plan for the 215-unit apartment complex that includes a clubhouse and a playground. A traffic impact study was performed and reviewed by the City of Caldwell Engineering Department. The code requires 10% open space, and they're providing 11%, equaling a little less than 1 acre of qualifying open space. Here are a few examples of the possible exterior schemes. The proposed development is compatible with the surrounding existing residential and commercial land uses and existing zoning. The proposed comp plan designation and development is consistent with the goals and policies of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Utilities are or will be provided to serve the proposed site and are or will be adequate to accommodate the proposed development. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. The only agencies that had concerns were Valley View School District, mentioned overcrowding, and we did not receive any public comments at the time of the report. Staff finds the proposed request is in compliance with the Caldwell City Codes, is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and is in harmony with the surrounding land uses. Staff recommends that if the Planning and Zoning Commission approves the request for special use permit and recommends the approval of the annexation and comprehensive plan amendment, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. I stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner Boutros.
I'm very much interested in understanding why an R3 designation has been requested when all of the surrounding property is either farmland or the medium density residential.
Commissioner, I will defer that to the applicant, but here is what is currently existing, and then this is what the comp plan is designating that area as well. As you can see over to the west and to the north, there is some business designation, and most of it is designated for medium density residential for the future.
Yes, so the nature of my question pertains to why would high density residential be requested for this when all around it is medium density?
Chair and Commissioner Boutros, it appears based on the proposed residential density of 25.21 dwelling units per acre, they would have to go with high-density residential because they would exceed the density allowances in a medium-density residential zone.
And why then would we grant that?
A high-density residential zone next to a medium-density residential zone is the next transition, and therefore is considered by land use law compatible.
Within the staff report, there is a discussion of avoiding spot areas, and this actually looks like it is creating a high-density residential spot in the middle of medium-density residential zoning.
So, Commission, well, that spot zoning does not just mean a spot that is zoned differently. It's a specific legal standard, and spot zoning is illegal. So, I haven't done an analysis to determine whether or not that applies here. My position is that would be that it does not. This isn't a situation where somebody's requesting, for example, a heavy industrial use in the middle of an R1 zone where it's incompatible with the surrounding uses and grants a special privilege to a particular property. I don't think that's an applicable, I don't think it's an applicable concern here. The questions about why the application ought to be approved, there are compatibility questions staff can answer, but ultimately it's the job of the applicant to articulate why. And so I think, anyway, that's the reason that staff is deferring, is because that is what the applicant will do, is articulate why they're requesting this.
So we can add that question too after.
We can address that with the applicant. I had a couple of additional questions for staff. On page 7 of the staff report, the fire and police statistics are given, with the nearest police station being approximately 2.7 miles away, and the nearest fire station is approximately 1.5 miles away. Can we get a sense of what the response time is, or what's estimated during peak traffic times?
Commissioner, at this time, I do not have that information.
Okay, so we did actually get feedback from the fire department saying that this was acceptable. I was just trying to understand how much of a divergence this might be, but that's not a real big issue. I will have a comment about Valley View School District. I don't know if it's appropriate now to discuss that or later. If you would advise on whether I should wait or take it up now.
In it's not, the questions and discussion there's not a specific line between them. That's what this portion is for. But at this point, the only evidence that's been entered into the record is the staff report. And so my advice would be to wait to have anything that was more in the category of discussion until all the evidence is into the
Thank you.
record.
I will. So I have more questions that pertain to the character of the area, the traffic impact study, and conformance to the 2040 comprehensive plan. It sounds like maybe I should hold off on those until perhaps after the applicant makes their presentation.
Yeah, I mean, if we may, and I'd also like to ask other commissioners if they have any questions, and maybe they'll ask similar questions or capture some of the answers that you're looking for.
I just have one question. So under the surrounding area compatibility, it says the proposed use is reasonably compatible. Can you quantify how it's reasonably compatible? I mean, you said a transition, so that seems reasonable, but all of them say reasonably compatible. Can you just try and describe that? Don't need to go into super deep detail.
Commissioner, that's just the language that staff uses in the staff report. I wouldn't give it a specific definition.
Okay.
Thank you. Further questions? If not, I would ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to come on up and offer their presentation. And please say your name and read your address into the record, please.
Well, my name is Nate Heinzen, 2582 North 27th Street, Boise, Idaho. I'm with Clancy Rockwell and Associates, here representing Copper Point Development. The Copper Point Development is a multifamily development designed in compliance with state and city of Caldwell development codes and fair housing guidelines, along with future development of the planned roundabout intersection at South Florida Avenue and East Usick Road. The site will have 10 12-unit buildings and 4 24-unit buildings, along with a clubhouse and designated playground area. The parking ratio exceeds the 1.5 spaces per unit parking spaces, with 1.77 spaces per unit to provide all parking on site. The floor plans are designed for all accessibility standards, along with bicycle parking in the buildings and on site. Each building type has a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units that each have balconies and adequate storage. We do have preliminary design schemes with a variety of traditional materials and colors in compliance with the City of Caldwell's design review guidelines. We have a couple of schemes here for you to review on those. I did want to speak to Commissioner Boutros' comment on whether this is spot zoning or not. We are trying to get ahead of any density issues like the City of Boise is experiencing right now of housing issues on that, and trying to provide more market rate housing for the citizens of Caldwell on that. That is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. I want to thank the commissioners and the chair for listening to our presentation and proposal, and we look forward to continue Grants Rockwell and Associates' longstanding collaborative working relationship. We are in agreement with the staff report, and I stand for any questions from the commission and chair.
Thank you, Mr. Heintzman? Heintzman, sorry. Any questions? Do you stand for questions from commissioners?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Boutros?
Give me a second.
While you're looking, any other questions? I see he's getting ready for his.
Yeah, for the third story, do any of those face towards someone's single-story homes, the balconies?
Not the balconies.
Not
no.
the balconies. Are there windows in the third story that would point towards someone's home?
There are windows, and that would just be for the units on that southwest side.
The 36-foot portion?
Yes, and those are just end units, and so try to minimize that, so we didn't kind of minimize the facing of that building towards that single-family home.
And for that portion, is it possible to have higher trees or shrubbery to protect those houses?
We can certainly consider that, absolutely.
And did you have a standard? I was trying to look at the heights and I didn't see I couldn't logistically see what they were. Do you have a standard height for the barrier that's going around it?
Don't know if I have one established for like a landscape barrier between those. Don't have one established, but can certainly agree to a height that would be appropriate to separate those two.
Yeah, I would just suggest for those homes, if it's possible, to have it for that portion of the 36-foot for those houses to just not have that looking in their backyard vibe.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, for the building which is closest to that residence in the southwest corner, I thought I saw there was some kind of exception that was being requested in order to allow that to be 3 stories tall.
That is true. Yes, we are requesting that to match the rest of the development of 3 stories.
Although being adjacent to a single-family residence, one might consider that a 2-story would be more compatible with that residence.
We are certainly amenable to adjusting anything as the council sees fit for that. We were just trying to keep everything uniform with the development itself. But we are willing to negotiate, absolutely.
Thank you. Other questions?
I think not at this time for me.
If not, I might ask the question that I think Commissioner Boutros was alluding to earlier to staff is, as you were planning this, and I know you talked about density, but if you can help me understand kind of that choice to go for high density when everything around it is medium density, and just kind of the rationale there. And I heard what you said, that one statement, but I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit for me.
The goal was looking forward into the comprehensive plan and what the city's needs will be into the future. And as commissioners have stated earlier, the growth of the city is exponential. And we'd like to provide the city with those utilities and with those services needed for a growing community.
Thank you.
Chair, quick question. Do you have a price estimate for these apartments? Because apartments are generally for a transitioning from moving out of your house to being an adult?
I don't have a price estimate at this point, but they will be market rate.
Okay. And that's not market rate now, it's market rate when they're finished.
I believe so.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
If I could make an observation. On page 17 of the staff report, under conditions of approval, condition 15 states, the applicant shall ensure building design is compatible with the existing neighborhood and adjoining properties by taking into account building type, height, bulk, and site location. And in this instance, the height, I think, is more problematic. I understand looking forward, trying to ensure that there's sufficient housing going into the future, but because of what the current comprehensive plan zoning is, as medium density residential, and what is currently either built or existing around this, I need more justification for a move to a high-density residential, because that is a requested change, not just being compatible with the comprehensive plan as it exists.
Right, exactly. And that was the nature of our request for that height exemption. But again, we will adhere to your decisions if you would like to see that be a two-story. And we can redesign and make sure that that is 2 stories in that area.
I appreciate that for that one building, but perhaps we're talking the entire development being medium-density residential.
And
in order to actually be consistent with the comprehensive plan as currently written.
And this site was designed with the R3 high density in mind on that. And so that's why we are asking for the 3 stories for the rest of the development. But that is where we are able to utilize that option to plan for the future, as the plan is for the comprehensive plan. The idea for the comprehensive plan is for. So we are looking to bring up the density issue on that. But
what I'd be looking for is something that argues in favor of higher density on the basis of demonstrated need. That if growth projections for the city and that some data set would exist that says that additional housing is desperately needed in this area, that would be the kind of justification to warrant changing the current zoning and going with high density instead of leaving it at medium density.
I understand, and I don't have any of that information in front of me right now, but I do believe with the current plan for that intersection at Fairview and Ustick Road, there is a planned roundabout in that area. So the city of Caldwell does have a plan for higher traffic volumes in that area moving into the future anyways.
And that is true, but traffic improvements are not intended only for this planned development, but rather for a great deal of development along those arterials.
Okay.
And I think it was a few weeks ago, a real estate report said that we're still 22,000 houses short for the people still moving into the valley.
Right.
So there is a housing crisis still.
Okay. So that kind of thing, we need the data for that rather than an anecdotal citation. Because if that is true, then that provides sufficient justification to warrant changing the comprehensive plan zoning to high density.
Yeah.
And we can supply those numbers if needed, and I apologize, I just do not have those at this time.
Thank you. Director Collins?
Thank you, Chair Zamora and Commissioners. Just to kind of dovetail on what Commissioner Harmon said, we just recently had a conference call last week. Compass has put together, there is a regional housing work group for the region as a whole, and he's absolutely correct. We are currently at a 22,000 shortage, and we are short a variety of housing types, which includes the multifamily at both workforce housing rates and market rate.
Okay, but that statement does that constitute testimony that should be taken into account, or is that anecdotal?
So, staff is aware of all kinds of facts and information about the site, the circumstances of the city, and it would have the equivalent weight of staff report if staff is saying that they're aware of the data, just like you would ask Mr. McDonald here about traffic counts or other engineering information. It's just part of the staff report. Staff is aware of the circumstances of the city, so.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Heinzman?
Chairman?
Yes.
I have one more clarification question for you. So the R2 max height is 35 feet and the R3 is 45. Why did you guys do 36 instead of go all the way up to 45? Because R2 is just 1 foot below.
Commissioner, I can actually speak to that.
Okay.
So, for that single-family residence right there, there's a footnote in the height chart that actually specifies that immediately adjacent to single-family, that it would need to be 25 feet. So for the remainder of the development, if it were to be approved, R3, it would be in compliance. It would just be that one building down in the corner that would be above that 25 foot that is specified in that footnote.
Okay.
Does that help answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Harmon?
So I think I think the consensus is there's a little bit of a height problem with that one building. So, but you are open to maybe doing a bigger barrier there somehow?
Absolutely.
With some shrubbery or trees?
Yes.
Whatever it needs to be, to help kind of relieve some of that. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay.
Commissioner Harmon.
Thank you.
Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Two last things, and then we can move on. So, is there a way to make the house look a little bit nicer? Can we add another texture and possibly add more masonry? And then also, can we make the house look a little nicer? Because the council wants it to look nicer, and it looks kind of just like every other multifamily. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to look like.
Right, yes, we can certainly play around with the materials, usage on that as well as commissioners see fit, and make it look like, something more modern if you needed to. We didn't want it to stand out, so much and be an eyesore at all, and we wanted it to make sure that it was in line with the traditional, design.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
No, it does look like you got quite a few different changes there. I mean, from lap siding to shake to board and bat to stone. I mean, I don't know how much more you can actually get differently without adding maybe some more stonework or something, or brick, but you do have quite a few changes. If I'm looking at it right.
Right, absolutely, but there's always, options we can explore if needed, if commissioners deem it necessary.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yep. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much. Also in favor was Michael Nye, but he wrote that he did not want to speak, if that's still correct. I don't know where yet. Sure. Go ahead and approach the mic and state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Michael Nye, 4253 West Lovegood Lane, Meridian, Idaho. We are the development company for this project, and I would like to address some of the questions and concerns of the commission as far as the change of zoning. We've had multiple meetings with the city over the last year to try to determine what's going to be the best option for the city. What does the city want? We've looked at everything from single-family housing, which tended to just continue to push people out because the density was not as high as it should be. We have looked at the R2 zoning, but in our conversations with the economic development team here at the city, they were the ones that said, hey, why don't we do an R3 zone? This gives us more of an option for our city. It gives us more workforce housing, as well as doesn't continue the sprawl of the city out with single family density. So that's the way that we came to this concept. We worked closely with the city over the last year to provide a product that would be both efficient for the city, housing that's affordable. This isn't high-end housing, this is workforce housing, and also something that would be pleasing, not just a high-density apartment complex, if you will, but a place that families could be, three bedrooms for larger families, play areas, barbecue areas. We are thinking into the future as well by providing electrical connections for electric cars. So there's some of those options that go into a workforce housing, yes, but also a higher quality product that the city could be very happy with. And our architectural team I think, has done a good job in providing a very visually pleasing. Sometimes the pictures are not really indicative of that, but it's not just a lap siding project. There's multiple variations in the architectural density in terms of different product. There's board and batten, there's lap, there's shake, but also in providing masonry look to the project. So our desire is to upgrade, to bring a good quality product to that corner because it is a high visibility corner. It's going to be very busy with the roundabout going in there, and being close to shopping and the amenities that are offered right there on Caldwell Boulevard. We felt like this was a really ideal place for a higher density to bring more people into that community area. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one question for staff. Can you remind me the threshold for medium density to high density? What the density is?
Chair, yes. So for medium density, it shall not exceed 4 dwelling units per gross acre, and for high density, it should not exceed 25.
A big difference. Thank you.
I got one question for staff.
Okay.
And when is the roundabout supposed to start? Is it this summer?
Yes, Commissioner, the roundabout technically has begun.
Okay.
They're doing utility work now.
Okay.
Immediately following the sewer line that is under construction, they will be upsizing a water line. And then immediately after that, they will be closing the intersection down and beginning the work. It is let's see, in conjunction with this intersection, they're also doing Indiana and expanding Indiana, and so they're both going on at the same time. And I don't know if it'll be done before school starts, but they're pushing to get it done as quick as possible.
But it's more than likely will be done before these apartments even got built and.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to neutrals. Those to sign up to neutral. Marcia Carr, would you like to speak? You have to come to the mic and say your name and state your address into the mic.
My name is Marcia Carr.
Do you want to pull the mic a little bit lower? Just pull it down towards you. Yep.
My name is Marcia Carr, and I live at 4310 South Florida Avenue. So I think I'm right across the street from where this thing is going. And I don't know what annexation means, and also what the buffer zone means, which the buffer zone cuts across the bottom part of our property, and I don't know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking on my property, our property?
Thank you. That's a good question that I'm going to ask staff to elaborate on. Typically, these is more for kind of testimony for the commission. Questions can certainly be asked to staff during business hours, but since you asked the questions, we'll have them answer those.
Sure, so I'll answer. So an annexation is when a property is next to the city limits and they are at the point where there's services available and they can annex to be part of the city of Caldwell. So right now they're currently in the county, so that's the process that we have to go through with the public and the commission to approve or deny the annexation. The buffer that you're referring to is a land use buffer. So that's a landscaping buffer that would provide just a compatibility buffer between your site and the adjacent site.
What does that mean?
So it's landscaping that we require them to put in to make it
The development is gonna put in landscaping?
on their property.
Not on our property?
Correct.
So even though this looks like it cuts across several people's property,
So the site that we're discussing, it's all on the developer's property. It won't interrupt anyone else's property.
okay.
And we would be happy to discuss it with you off the record as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then I had no one sign up in opposition for this specific case. So with that, I will move back to
Chair, I have,
oh, yes.
sorry. Chair, I have one last question. For staff, do we have a percentage of the R3s that should be residential in Caldwell with the comprehensive plan? So percentage of single-story, two-story, do we have an idea?
Chair, Commissioner, I don't believe that staff has that information.
Could you bring it to the next meeting, is that possible, to give us a rough estimate of the percentage of apartments that would be appropriate for us to develop with the comprehensive plan?
So, Commissioners, if I may, so it's, now if you're asking for what the current percentages are for stories in the R3 zone, that we can obtain. The zoning ordinance does not get it so specific that it says 20% of future development in the R3 zone should be one story and 70% should be two story, and what did I say, 70 and 20, so 10% should be three story. That is not, the zone provides parameters and development occurs within those parameters based upon whatever numbers the developer is looking at. But our zoning code does not set, nor does our comprehensive plan set prescribed or preferred numbers of stories by percentage in the various zones or comp plan designations.
So not, I guess, not stories type, so a single family, apartments, townhomes, does it have a rough estimate of what the goal should be for the city of Caldwell?
The zoning code wouldn't have an estimate like that. An estimate like that could be generated by a commission or a planning group, and there could be a perceived deficit or overabundance of a category. And then the way you would implement that is by modifying the zoning code to permit or prohibit various types of residential housing based on zone, and you could rezone. And that process occurs, is emergent, occurs constantly. I'm in the R3 zone. I think it has been the case that multifamily was permitted. I can't remember exactly when that changed, but that would be an example of staff and city council and whatever other resources they draw on doing the analysis you're talking about. But the levers are more broad than, they're more broad levers. You pull them by zone designation and permitted use. They don't get down to specific
type.
Yeah, there are places like the R1 zone where multifamily is not permitted or permitted or allowed by special use, I think. So that would be the closest thing to what you're asking for.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, I would ask the applicant, give him a final opportunity to rebut any testimony that was presented, if you would like. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mm-hmm.
when would be an appropriate time to bring up the issue with the letter from Valley View?
I think that would be after we probably move into, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony, and that would give us an opportunity to discuss all the testimony, including the items in our packet. So with that, I would entertain a motion and close public testimony.
I make a motion to close public testimony.
Commissioner Harmon made the motion,
Second.
second from Commissioner Larson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so now public testimony is closed, the discussions amongst us as the commission. So now would be a good time that we would dialogue, on all of the, everything.
So if we could go into the packet to the Valley View letter, and to call your attention to the final bullet in that letter that says, the Valley View School Board will have a bond on the ballot in the May election. If the bond passes, 2 new elementary schools will be built to solve the overcapacity problem. Given that, I think I would like to insert a condition of approval in the package that the condition of approval should state that the Valley View School Board has to pass that bond.
I may ask legal counsel to chime in on if.
Can we do that?
Can we do that?
I would not recommend putting that condition in. I think that if that's a concern, then that condition, that's essentially, let me take a step back. There's a general principle of municipal law and planning and zoning law that it's inappropriate to defer, to take your decision-making authority, the one that you have, or recommendation authority, the one that you have, and basically hand it to somebody else. Now, it's one thing to get input from other jurisdictions and use that to inform your own decision-making, but I would be concerned about having a condition that creates an on-off switch with the criteria like bonding. I think if the concern is that the bond might not pass, then on the whatever specific applications you were looking at within the 3, that you would recommend denial or deny on the basis of the current school capacity and not create that little machine in the conditions. I think that'd be less preferable. So.
Yeah, so I made the suggestion wanting to not unduly delay the progress of the application through the process. That in doing a condition of approval and knowing that that goes before the city council and there's another opportunity then for the city council to assess whether or not they want to retain the condition of approval. But it calls it to their attention, and I wasn't thinking of it so much as kicking the can down the road, but rather trying to delay something like a denial if it's not warranted except for this one issue. It looks like the developer has done all of their homework, and there's another thing that we're going to want to do here, but with regard to this, it looks like it's a fairly severe problem as Valley View continues, because they've already failed 2 bonds in a row, and if they fail another bond, there's no path forward for them.
I'm not sure. Are you just describing why you asked the question, or are you asking an additional question?
I am reacting to your recommendation not to insert the condition of approval. I would rather not default to a recommend deny. I would like to be able to recommend approval, but recognizing that there's an issue that is still not resolved and that issue is out of our control.
Okay, and so to the question, would it be appropriate to add a condition to either recommend the addition of a condition to the annexation and rezone, the annexation, rezone and comp plan amendment, or to add a condition to the special use permit that the project won't proceed until, unless the bond measure is passed? My answer is no, I do not recommend that you do that.
So we either have to approve as is or deny the whole thing.
So you don't have the authority to deny the whole thing. You can recommend denial of the components that you can.
Right.
The special use permit you can deny. But again, I'm telling you that my legal advice is to not include that as a condition, for both the reason that I'm uncomfortable with the machine that it makes and the deferral of authority, and also, the issue you're addressing by that condition is a school capacity issue, and whether or not that, without knowing more specifically what the bond would fund, where the elementary school would be placed, whether it would have any impact whatsoever on this particular development, I don't think it's appropriate to try to connect that dot. So if the applicant has failed to carry the burden, or there are conditions that cause you to decide that now is not the appropriate time, then you can recommend denial of the those categories of things that you can recommend that on. And for the special use permit, if you can articulate how the issue is connected with the criteria listed there for that, and deny that. So,
thank you. The only other issue is for the building which is closest to the single. I'm close. Yeah. For the building that is closest to the single-family residence, that it should not be given an exception and be allowed to be 36 feet, but rather should be held at the 25 feet.
Okay. Other discussion?
I get your point there, and I really do, and I think that if they can put some sort of landscape buffer and not do that and still be able to block that single-family residence, I think as for a developer, for a cost-effective part, that would be more cost-effective than losing 11 feet too.
Understood. So if I could, testimony has been closed, but if you look at the angle, so if you were to stand on the property line of the single residence home, how many feet away is the nearest building, and what angle is the roof if for someone standing on the property line?
I don't know if we have that answer, and testimony has been closed.
Chair and Commissioner, so I do want to address that the differing land use buffers that is required in code for multifamily comparative to single family is listed as 20 feet for instances somewhat similar to this, and they do provide that 20-foot buffer. I don't know if that helps or provides you any clarity, but
it's still a 3-story building, 20 feet away from the property line, does bulk up against the sky. I think I would like very much to limit that one building to 2 stories and move on.
Okay. I don't disagree with you on that one, actually. I recognize the testimony and I appreciate the feedback around the housing crisis. I certainly recognize that we're, living the life that I live with around with the people. It is a big jump from medium density to high density, particularly to a point made earlier. But also I see the vision of, as we move out, that likely will change. We'll probably likely see other requests, and that's going to start transitioning over. But to your point, and I heard the applicant say they were agreeable to that condition of making sure that one building was not a 3-story building that overlooked the other property, so that we can be respectful, both my take is being respectful of the landowner, the developer's stance, but also the homeowner who lives in the home and has lived in that home. Any other thoughts or discussion?
Chair, I just wanted clarification from staff on the trip. So it says something about so many hours. Can you quantify whether that's like good, bad, okay? It says, what is it? It's 5,080 vehicle hours. Can you quantify that a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. It sounds like you're looking at the traffic mitigation section of the 5080 vehicle trips has nothing to do with this project. That is simply indicating what the average capacity is of a typical intersection. And so the way the traffic mitigation is set up and calculated based off of the trip generation of a development is it is compared to a typical intersection, and that's how the value of the mitigation is derived. So this project has a trip generation that is based off of the number of units that it has. And the peak trip, I believe in the peak hour is, I think it's 113 vehicle trips in that peak hour. And then the rest of the day, it's gonna be much less. And so the traffic mitigation is calculated based off of that peak hour, trip generation. So the 50/80 is basically just stating what a typical intersection capacity generally is.
Okay, so then is the 100 approximate trips, is that low, medium, high for a 4-lane?
That's very low. If you're looking at that individually, that development alone on a road, that's a very low capacity. We, of course, in the engineering department, we're looking at the whole system, the entire network, and we're trying to see how everything plays into the transportation plan. And we are constantly looking at future projects and improvements and trying to identify locations that need help. Florida and Houston has been a problem child for some time, and we are very delighted to finally have this intersection improved, and the capacity and the ability for this intersection to accommodate a higher number of vehicle trips is going to be greatly improved.
Okay. And so so right now, it's like medium, good, bad?
Yeah, this development was just barely over the threshold to even require a traffic impact study.
Okay.
There's a threshold, and if you're underneath that, a traffic impact study is not even required, and this is just barely over that.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussions on this? So as we move forward, the next step would be to vote on a recommendation. So I guess I want to gauge where we're landing. I'm certainly, and would advocate for that one building near, I guess we should be able to articulate it more clearly for the record. The one building that, is near the current, off parcel or out parcel, is not, a 3-story building. It's my personal recommendation.
Mine would be to, just increase the tree height right there since it's 20 feet back. And I guarantee with that angle, a little higher tree, you're not gonna ever see that house ever.
Other thoughts?
And I would just ask possibly just some more masonry, just to make it look a little nicer. I mean, it looks pretty good, but just a little nicer.
So I would support keeping that building at 2 stories, even with plantings. I think it's 20 feet and 35 feet high. You're looking at a probably almost 50-degree up angle.
So I guess I would, let's see, there's all this. I lost the spots right here. Okay, so if we're ready, I would entertain a motion, an order of decision rather, on case number ANN22. And just as an aside, this is where we would approve the conditions and then add additional conditions to a motion for a vote. So I would entertain a motion of decision on case number AN22 0000022 CPM 22000010 SUP 22000029.
Do we need a separate vote on each element?
Nope. It's all of those would include. Yep, one motion.
Chair and Commissioners, when you're making your motion, just keep in mind, you can read them all in one motion, but you will be making a recommendation for the annexation and the comp plan amendment and an approval or denial on the SUP.
And
then you can have conditions.
Commission, one additional comment. You are not obliged to make them all in one motion. So if it is the case that there's a motion is a binary proposition, right? And so if the desire to do something that's not a binary yes or no to all three, then it's certainly appropriate to make a motion on one of the items and then subsequent motions on the rest. So you're not obliged to take them all up at once. You are permitted to.
Okay, and I'm sorry for being a little bit confused. The exception that was requested for the house near the southwest corner, was that the SUP?
Mhm.
Okay, so if we were to deny the SUP, then that house would have to remain at 2 stories?
No, because there was they think it was 20 feet that you said earlier, right?
Chair and Commissioner, just to clarify, that SUP is kind of twofold. So the SUP needs to be approved to allow for a multifamily development use on the R3. So that would need to be something, but you could potentially make a condition to not allow for the 36 and keep that at the 25 foot
For that one
for that one
structure?
building.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're clear now, so at this point, I'd entertain a motion.
So we're just reading right here. Make a motion, based on the record and evidence, finding of facts, and conclusion of law, that the Planning and Zoning Commission hereby orders that case ANN 22-000022, CPM 22-000010, and SUP 22-000029 for Copper Point is hereby recommended for approval. You guys want the condition of?
So I do think, I mean, where I would recommend in your motion, add in the conditions as outlined in staff report, and then we would add the additional ones.
And the conditions in the staff report.
And I would like, and it is your motion, to have that one building next to the
I'm gonna do it as mine, you guys can
Okay.
deny it. So, and the condition of just, larger trees to protect that, side where the house is. That would be my condition.
Chair and Commissioner Harmon, let me just clarify. So is that to make it a 2-story, or just leave it as 3-story, but have the trees kind of buffering it?
That's his motion.
Okay, and can I also clarify in the motion that it's a recommendation of approval for the annexation and comp plan amendment, but it's an actual approval for the SUP? Okay.
So we would need a second on that motion to move forward?
Because it has to be approved in its entirety.
Correct.
If you could add the masonry, I'd be willing to approve that, to readjust your conditions to just add additional masonry.
Okay,
You accept,
I just accept that.
as a friendly amendment?
Yep.
Okay, then I second.
All right, so there was a motion and a second, so roll call?
Harmon,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Boutros,
No.
Zamora,
No.
Byrne.
So the motion fails. So our job is to have action, to make a decision with this. So I would entertain a different motion, or I would entertain another motion.
If we could prevail on Sean to read all of that again, but this time, make it a 2.
Pull it over to you, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
And actually, you've
Is
got
it on there?
the additional, so it might be easier just to read off here. Here's your motion, and then this is what he added. And you add the other, okay, so start right here.
Okay.
Based on, there you go.
So this is,
You would say,
based
based on, right here, you would start there.
So, based on the record and evidence, findings of fact, and conclusions of law, the Planning and Zoning Commission hereby orders that case ANN 22-000022 and CPM 22-000010 is hereby recommended for approval, and case SUP 22-000029 for Copper Point is hereby approved with the conditions as outlined in the staff report, and with the condition added that the building in the southwest corner shall be limited to 2 stories, and, Dave? And additional masonry be considered or be considered for exteriors.
Okay, and was there was something about we approve the SUP, you added a clarification on the last one. That clarification.
Chair and Commissioners, he actually read it correctly.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, so there was a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second from Commissioner Larson. Roll call, please.
Harmon,
No.
Larson,
Yes.
Boutros,
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes. All right, thank you, everybody. So with that, goes our recommendation and approval for that specific item. And we'll move on in the agenda to action item 2, which is a public hearing quasi-judicial case number CPM 21000002 and ANN 21000014, ZON 21000005, SUB 210000, maybe one more zero, there's 4 zeros, 41, and SUP 21000015, Arrow Rock Farm Subdivision. Gem State Planning, on behalf of Trilogy Development and Endurance Holdings LLC, is requesting annexation and 21000014 of parcel R23709011000, approximately 17.77 acres. R327090110 or B0, approximately 17.4 acres, and the right-of-way along the Carter Road frontage, approximately 2.78 acres, for a total of approximately 37.95 acres, to include approval of a development agreement associated with ANN 21000014. The applicant is proposing an HC highway corridor zoning designation for approximately 27 acres, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan future land use designation of highway corridor. The proposed zoning designation for the remaining 10.99 acres is R2 medium density, where the comprehensive plan designation is highway corridor. Concurrently, the applicant is requesting comprehensive plan map amendment CPM 21000002 for 10.99 acres to modify the designation from highway corridor to medium density residential, to include approval of resolution number 344-22 associated with CPM 21-000002. Also requested is an approval of a preliminary plat SUB 21000041 for Arrow Rock Farm Subdivision, a mixed-use subdivision consisting of 40 single-family homes, 60 townhome units, 52 four flex units, and 2 commercial lots, and 15 open space common lots. At the time of the application submission, multifamily was a permitted use within the HC corridor zone, and single-family within the HC highway corridor zone requested a special use permit. Therefore, approval of a special use permit SUP 21000015 is requested for the proposed townhomes within HC highway corridor zone. The subject properties are located on the northwest corner of Carter Road and South Indiana Avenue. All right, staff report, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Elizabeth Allen, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, Caldwell. Before you this evening is Arrow Rock Farm. All right, so the property is located, there's 2 subject properties for the site. It's approximately 35.2 acres located on the northwest corner of Carter Road and Indiana Avenue. The applicant is requesting to annex 2 parcels with a zoning designation of R2 medium density residential on approximately 10.99 acres and highway corridor on approximately 26.93 acres as shown in the picture, along with a comprehensive plan map amendment from highway corridor to medium density residential along the area that's requested for the R2 zone. Also requested is approval of a special use permit to construct townhouses, and then in addition they are requesting a preliminary plat. The applicant is proposing a density of 4.31 dwelling units per acre, with a 9.51% open space along with supporting amenities. A total of 152 residential units are proposed with a mixture of single-family homes, townhomes, and fourplexes. 2 commercial lots and 15 open space lots are proposed. Access is proposed onto any Indiana Avenue with connections made to the subdivisions to the north. And you can see that on the screen, the 2 access points to the adjacent subdivisions. City water and sewer are proposed to serve the development, and a full breakdown is found on page 5 of the staff report. This is their preliminary plat for, if you need me to pull it back up later. For the existing conditions, the site was previously used as farmland, it's currently in the county, so it's zoned agricultural, and is surrounded primarily by residential uses and zoning designations of R2 medium density residential and R1 single family residential, and that's shown in the light green and the yellow to the north and the east. And then I'll go over some site photos provided by staff in the next slides. So this is looking north and northeast from the southwest corner of the site. Okay, and this is looking northwest and south from the southwest corner. And then this is looking southeast from the southwest corner and looking south from the northeast corner. And then we have looking southeast and southwest from the northeast corner. And then the last photo is looking west from the northeast corner. And you can see the adjacent subdivisions that are next to the property. So you're seeing, it looks like 2-story housing units. As I mentioned earlier, they're proposing to connect to city water and sewer, which are available to the site via Indiana Avenue, Aptos Avenue, and Carlport Way. And those are in the adjacent subdivision. The area is served by Valley View School District, Caldwell Police Department, and Caldwell Fire Department. And more information is provided on page 8 and 9 of the staff report. The 2040 comprehensive plan designates the site as highway corridor. Adjacent to the site to the west, east, and south is highway corridor. And then to the north we have medium density residential and low density residential. For agency comment, Caldwell Engineering Department provided requirements. Nampa and Meridian Irrigation District responded that the site lies outside of their jurisdiction. Caldwell Fire Department provided requirements. Valley View School District did provide comment. It was dated April 2022, and that was provided to you. That exhibit number is PZ-1000. And the applicant has been working with Valley View School District, so they will have an update for you that will address the comments mentioned in their comment that they provided. 2 public comments were received. One was from Steve Brooks. He responded in opposition with concerns about transportation capacity in the area as well as crash fatalities. And then we received a late exhibit, PZ-1001, from Darlene Peterson, who responded in opposition with concerns about public services and facilities and the general character of the area. For the staff analysis, based on the information provided in the staff report, we found that the proposal is compatible with in the area as a transition for the site by providing high density along Highway 55 and then transitioning into the lower density residential to the north where it abuts the single family residential. The commercial lots provide goods and services would provide goods and services to residents in the area. And the proposal aligns with 3 goals and 8 policies in the plan. And so staff is recommending approval of the request subject to the recommended conditions of approval. And just for reference, the medium density residential future land use designation identifies residential density shall not exceed 4 dwelling units per acre for a single family residential subdivision, and for mixed use plan unit development sites it shall not exceed 12 dwelling units per acre. And then for the highway corridor, it's a transitional area, so you can have commercial uses and residential uses. And development in this area should occur in a manner that does not disrupt the function of the highway system, and that's been addressed in their application. And the residential density range shall be at least 6 units per acre and shall not exceed 40 units per acre. And I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Elizabeth,
I have a
Commissioner-
question.
Commissioner Boutros?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Could we bring up the plat? There is a rectangular cutout which is not part of this development on the east side. Can you tell us what is there?
So I believe what you're seeing is open space. So that's part of the plat.
I believe it's owned by it's a daycare.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the northeast corner.
Okay, so we were advised not to go to Google Maps, and I didn't, so I don't really know what's there.
Yeah, let me see if there's any pictures.
Yeah, I believe it's Darney's Daycare, and there's also a house there as well. Those are the residents I know.
I think that's to the west. Okay, so our engineer is pulling up the aerial image.
Thank you. So while you're doing that, any other questions for staff right now?
I believe in the staff report, there was one piece of data towards the back of it, I'm not grabbing right now, that cited something like 185 housing units, but in the front part, you talk about the 152 housing units. We should make sure that those numbers agree.
Through the chair, Commissioner, that's, so 152 units are correct. I can go back through and we can make that correction.
Here's the map that says, hope answer your question, this pulled up.
Yeah, so I was just curious what is actually there that this is going in around. I don't know if I had a question about the staff analysis on page 10, and it might just be a matter of sentence structure. Under A, character of area, it says the proposal would provide a nice transition from the single family to north, period. So it's an incomplete sentence.
Commissioner, that's correct. So I believe what it should say is the proposal would provide a nice transition, I would say, from the Highway 55 as you go north to the single family subdivision. And
Okay, so that's something else that could be corrected.
Sure.
Thank you.
Other questions on the staff report from commissioners? Hearing none, I would ask Bonnie Layton, who is here as the applicant or representative. Welcome. Please state your name and your address into the record, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening, Chairperson Zamora and members of the Commission. My name is Bonnie Layton. I am with NV5. We are at 690 South Industry Way, Suite 10, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. I'm actually here tonight standing in for Jane Suggs, who you saw her name in the application materials. She was unable to attend this evening, so I'm standing in her place. So with that, I'll do my best to present the project before you, and with that, we'll walk through our proposal and how we believe it complies with the comprehensive plan of the city as well as the zoning code. So let's see. So as staff has mentioned, our project location is in the northwest corner of Karcher Road and Indiana Avenue. In this area, we've got some undeveloped land, but also some that has been annexed into the city. We're bordered on the south by Highway 55 and obviously Indiana Avenue, which is a minor arterial along our eastern boundary. To the north, we have the Kings View subdivision and then also the Quail Ridge subdivision, as was previously mentioned. And then also we have Deer Flat and the Caldwell lateral that runs sort of diagonally through the site. So in discussion about the future land use map, I won't spend too much time on this, but as staff mentioned, this property is zoned highway corridor. It's really in response to Highway 55 that goes through this area and is appropriately designated that. let's see. So there are 2 existing residential subdivisions to the north. The remaining adjacent properties are also designated as highway corridor with the exception of the cemetery. That's the big green in the southeast corner of the intersection. Water and wastewater, as staff mentioned, is available at the site, which we will be pulling the services through there, to and through the site. So also in this, I did a little bit more of a blow up of the specific area to show how our project fits in with the adjacent development. So we do have a couple of stub streets in those adjacent developments that we are required to connect to. That's part of connectivity that the city requires that we do, and also it makes those subdivisions in compliance with fire code. You have to have a second access point certain distance away. So the connection of our stub streets to those adjacent subdivisions completes that requirement in the fire code so that there's ample access in and out of those residential areas. What you'll also see on the left-hand side is, just for frame of reference, looking at this area of growth of the city. This is in the path of growth. You'll see that we are bordered on 3 sides by city limits. And then also we kind of have some county land, but then farther to the south there is more city limits. So on that image, the kind of light purple, that is all part of the city of Caldwell. So this is quickly becoming an enclave area where development has sort of come from the north, it's coming from the east, and it's coming up from the south. So that makes this parcel in that path of growth. So as for the development of the area, let's see. What we are proposing is a mix of home types, and I'd like to move into some specific details on this. As I mentioned, we have the 2 stub streets that we're required to connect to the adjacent subdivisions. And this site is 35.2 acres. We have 40 single-family residential lots. Those are along our northern and kind of western boundary. You will notice in the application materials that we felt that this was an appropriate buffer to transition from the same development pattern that we have in the residential developments adjacent to us, and then increase the density as we move sort of southeast through the site towards the intersection. And because of that, wanting to provide that transition, that necessitated the need for the comprehensive plan map amendment to allow us to rezone just a portion of that to the residential. Let's see. We also have 60 townhome lots, so that's those lots are mostly through the center of our development, and then 52 units that are in the fourplex development that's adjacent to Highway 55. In addition to that, we have 2 small commercial lots at the corner appropriately located where there's the most visibility for a commercial use. One of the things, I think, to speak to your question about the number of units, when we initially submitted this application, we received feedback from ITD about the improvements along Highway 55, which created the necessity for us to redesign the project to accommodate the widening of that, and I can get into more detail in that. So ultimately, we dropped from, I think that the initial submittal was like 187 lots, so now we're down to the number that you have before you this evening, which is totaled to 152. Let's see, put my readers on here. So in addition to the different lot types that we have, we also have a variety of open spaces and amenities that are dispersed throughout the site. We have a pathway that's planned along the lateral. It's a requirement of the city. Overall, our density, as staff mentioned, is 4.31. Let's see. Quickly going through my notes here. So, as I mentioned, when we did the design for this, it was very specific that we would not have any direct access from lots onto Indiana or onto Highway 55. We actually have no access onto Highway 55. We have access points onto Indiana, and the traffic impact study was completed for this development. You will also notice the out parcel that's on our eastern boundary. We have provided a stub access for that parcel, so they could come in off of the street that we will be developing and then turn into their property, which will comply with future development and spacing requirements along Indiana. So we have provided that alternative access point for that out parcel once it develops in the future. Also, I might add that we will be starting the phasing on this in the northeast corner and then kind of moving through the site. The commercial portion would be the last piece, but the services come from the northeast. So to get into a little bit more detail on what the residential lots will look like, so the developer of this project is the same developer as the subdivision to the kind of northwest. I believe Hubble Homes developed the subdivision to the north of us. These are renderings of the types of homes that we would build. They are 1- and 2-story homes, very typical and similar to the adjacent neighborhoods.
You have about 1 more minute on your time.
Pardon me?
About 1 more minute on your time.
We've got the townhome lots in the middle. Again, we've provided some renderings for what those homes will look like, very traditional architecture and character. And then the fourplex residential units as well that are along Highway 55. Again, traditional style architecture and materials, very consistent with the neighborhood and similar to the other types of units that we will be building. And as I mentioned, the right-of-way, this I pulled from ITD's plans. They are looking, according to their website, I pulled this down this week, that they are going to begin construction in late 2023, early 2024, for the improvement of this. And so I just copied that right from their website, and you can see how their plans relate to our project site.
Okay.
And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Layton, so one question I have was kind of referring to one of the comments, so kind of the conversation you have had with Valley View School District.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer that. Since Valley View had provided a comment or had reviewed this, the property owner has reached an agreement with the school district to donate 12.4 acres for a school site. It's a pretty significant donation. At land prices these days in Caldwell, between anywhere from $100,000 an acre to over $300,000 an acre, it's a pretty significant contribution. My client, the property owner, understands that there is a need, and this is really a great front-end way to contribute to the school district. Other clients that I have and other projects I've worked on have agreed to a partnership, a dollar amount per unit, which will take time to build up. We believe that the agreement that the property owner has reached with the school district, it really gives the school district a leg up in terms of moving their efforts forward to secure additional facilities. I know it was mentioned also, and I've had several conversations with Joey Palmer at the school district. There is a bond election that is set for May 16th. according to the information that's been provided, if the bond passes, the property taxes for individual homeowners will not increase, due to levy rates adjustments and, restructuring of things. So actually, voting yes will not change the dollar amount on your taxes, but it will gain you 2 new schools and 2 new roofs, I believe it is, for existing school facilities. So very important to understand that, and I think for the public to understand. Often they hear, oh, we're going to go for a bond election and that's going to increase my taxes. In this case, that's not the situation. And I feel very, very fortunate to be working with a developer or client that's also willing to contribute to help solve the problem.
Thank you. Other questions for Ms. Layton from the commission? Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, Chair. I have a quick question, same question as last time. Do you have estimates for how much these will cost for the townhomes and the apartments and the single families? For a renter?
Chairman or Commissioner Larson, I get that question all the time at every hearing. These will be market rate homes, and they will be similarly priced to adjacent development. I can't speculate, and I would hate to do that at this point. We are looking for a build timeline of the first certificate of occupancy, if everything goes, you know, just timeline really nice, wouldn't be until early 2025. So that's quite a ways out to be able to try to speculate. They will be market rate, and price per square foot will be commensurate with the properties adjacent to us.
Okay. And then did you reach out to the family who owns that house and owns the business?
I apologize. I don't know that answer because I'm stepping in at this point. I know that we did have a neighborhood meeting. Again, I wasn't in attendance on that. I know that there were concerns about traffic and about the school capacity and about the stub streets, which are required. Unfortunately, that's all I can provide.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for staff real quick.
Sure.
That relates with the Valley View. You guys said that letter was dated almost a year ago? I mean, do we have a different, now that they've came to an agreement, that letter seems obsolete.
Through the chair, Commissioner, so I believe the letter was sent when they originally submitted, and there's been revisions since then.
Yeah.
I did ask Mr. Palmer for an official letter, but that was this afternoon, and I hadn't gotten an official letter from him. But there are emails with the school district, and as the applicant discussed, that's what we were told from the school district as well.
Thank you.
And if I may, we initially submitted this, and then when ITD reviewed it, so we submitted a long time ago, and it's taken this length of time because we were waiting for design from ITD to be able to accommodate what exactly they wanted to see happen along Highway 55. So that's why there was some delay in terms of comments and feedback.
Thank you. Other questions from Commission? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
So I have nobody else signed up in favor or neutral. I have several in opposition. So for those who, once I call you up, you'll have 5 minutes. Certainly if you come up and if somebody said it, you can say ditto, but you will have 5 minutes. So Tammy Ashmore.
And Chair, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, just let me interject real quickly as to the use of the term market rate. Just for context, my understanding of the term market rate means that it is not housing where it is going to be below market rate by virtue of some subsidy. So market rate is the general term for housing where the rates are set by market conditions and not there's no contribution.
Subsidized housing, low income housing. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. Ms. Ashmore. Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
Tammy Ashmore, 16188 Dietz Way, Caldwell, Idaho, 830, what is it? 83607.
Thank you.
Oh, hi. I have a lot of comments, and thanks for only giving me 5 minutes, because you're not going to get them all now. There are many questions and problems that we have in the development. We are concerned about traffic. Highway 55 is a death trap as it is right now. I've been in a very serious accident in September on Carter Road, or 55. There are never police patrolling it because we don't have enough police. And so during this time of construction, I think that particular issue is going to be an issue for the city of Caldwell and Nampa. I worry that we won't have enough response time from the police or our emergency agencies during this construction time. I mean, we as occupants have no idea what IDT is doing. We have no idea. No one has sent us a letter, nor has the builder sent us a letter with the new plot plan. We need to know these things as residents of Quail Ridge. I live in Quail Ridge, and that butts right up against several homes that are near us. Let's see, I'm nervous. I worry about the recent water issues. This year, thank goodness, the Lord has given us rain, and we have a lot of it, and we do not have a drought situation at this point. However, from last year, I started studying work based on drought conditions from 2001 until now, and as you can see, they go up and down every year. If we keep building this many houses for industry that isn't here yet, and we don't know for sure that industry is coming, I mean, we don't as homeowners. We hear a lot of talk about it, but I haven't seen any big issues or big buildings like Amazon, and I mean, thank goodness they're here for Nampa and Meridian, but if we keep expanding, we're going to be like LA. We don't want to be like Los Angeles, where every house is on top of every house, where water is inconsistent at best. Drought concerns are a real concern, and there has to be some type of study done, I would hope. I do know that there are some people that live by Lake Lowell that unfortunately they were having to, because the aquifer was tapped last year so low, excuse me, because it was so low, they were having to take baths at their friends' houses. They could only wash their dishes and only so many dishes. Now that's last year's drought. If you don't think for 1 second that that's not going to happen again, maybe you should do some research, because it absolutely will happen again. And we all need to be cognizant of that. Last year they cut off our irrigation water early. I haven't found out what they're doing this year for irrigation water, but California has no irrigation water. I'm just giving you a per se. They can't water their lawns. Do we want to follow behind them with thousands of homes when the droughts do happen? This right here is just 23 years. You know, since 1923, there have been a number of severe drought days, a number of them, and I encourage you to take a look at those numbers. I worry that the builders, with the money that they have invested in the land and the surrounding areas, that's wonderful. I'm all for that. But when we're building on top of each other, we're becoming California. And I don't think there's a single person in this state that likes that idea. Let's see, what else? I already talked about the police and the fire personnel. Thank you for the funding of the schools, by the way. I think that's outstanding that the property owner did that. That's wonderful, because we don't have little children, but a lot of our friends do, most of our church's children. And we hear the stories about, well, they had to get up at 6 to get on the bus to go 30 miles away. I personally wouldn't do that to my child, and I didn't to my own 2 children. But because we are putting money ahead of our children, shame on us for approving it. It's not okay. Our kids should be number one. And again, we want to be like California? No, we don't. That's one of their problems. Nevada has the same issue, and I'm quite sure Utah does too, because they're almost out of room, and their lake is completely dry, going to drought. Further, the traffic situation is monstrous, and I don't know who's who's doing the research on Carter Road, but I got to tell you, it takes sometimes to get from my house, which is, on Dietz Way, just below, is that my time
Yeah,
up?
it is.
That's terrible. Okay, well, I thank you for the consideration. I do have one little teeny thing to say. Didn't you say there were 152 units going in? The letter we received, if I total it properly, is 308. Oh, I don't know. You're not including fourplexes? You're including, are you saying that they're housing like a building? Because if you look at this, the letter that was sent by the city of Caldwell.
Yeah, so thank you. Typically make sure we address the chair, and then, I'll ask staff to answer that, and thank you for your time up here. But
All right,
if
thank you very much for hearing.
Yeah, but I'll ask her to answer your question quickly.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So it is 150 units total. I'm not sure where the 308 came from. I would have to have more information to answer that question.
Okay. So maybe that's a conversation we have offline, but the proposal that's before us is the 152.
See.
Correct.
Well, that's funny,
thank you,
because it's not true, or the city of Caldwell has made a terrible mistake. Ron, will you show them the letter when you come up?
Thank
Thank
you, Ms. Ashmore.
Quick question, Chair.
Yeah, oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah. So if you don't want us to pass this, what would you suggest we do then?
Leave the farmland alone.
So then
No,
where
well,
would we
we're surrounded by
develop?
farmland over there. I don't know. All four corners at Indiana and Karcher, or 55, the cemetery is the only other occupied area. And there's a big field across the street, and a big field where we are, and a big field across the other side. That's 3 farm units, farm areas. Why is it, it's farm, and similar to the other project that you were talking about, number 1, same situation. We were primarily farm area.
So then where would the people who are moving into Caldwell come and live if we don't develop here?
I don't believe, what? I don't believe for 1 minute that we're down by 22,000 and some odd homes. That may be someone's, encouraging survey. But I see, when we drive down Karcher alone, there's a big, bunch of units at Midway, I think it is. I think they're fourplexes. Half of them are empty. What's that about? There's so many that are not full. And if there's a workforce that we're going to be holding on to, taking care of for what's coming here, what's coming here?
We're the 13th fastest growing city in America, so a lot of people are coming here. If you don't want us to build here, that's reasonable if you have a amenable option for us to do somewhere else.
It's not my responsibility to make an option for you guys. It's my responsibility as a homeowner to ensure our children's safety, our children's schooling, our water coming in properly, our police funded correctly. Those are my concerns, not what a builder wants to pay for a piece of land or what he can get.
Sure. Thank you for that
Thanks.
feedback. Ronald Ashmore.
Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify. In the notice, I think where the confusion was, is it lists 40 single-family homes, 60 townhome units, 52 fourplex units. So that's a total of 52 units, not 52 buildings with 4 units in each building, which only comes to 152.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
That makes more sense, thank you.
Mr. Ashmore, go ahead and say your name and address into the record, please.
Ronald Ashmore, 16188 Dietz Way, Caldwell, Idaho, 83607.
Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes.
All right. Big concerns that I had. We live right next door in the Quail Ridge development, which is right across the wash, adjacent to the single-family homes you see across there. I live directly on the other side of that wash. Number one of the most beautiful things that I enjoy is the view out my back patio. And as soon as all those 2-story homes go up, I lose my complete view of the valley. And that really ticked me off. I have a big objection to that. There was no concern for us whatsoever when it came to what we see and what we enjoy along the whole backside of Quail Ridge there. All the homes along there will lose that beautiful view that we have of the valley and the mountains. Anyhow, one of my big concerns is our police and fire department and all of our support units. Our police is one of the lowest paid police forces in Idaho. They can't seem to get more police officers in at the wages they pay. We know, a best friend of the new police chief, used to work for him in the Hollywood unit in Los Angeles. And, at this point here, we're very short on policemen, and we're not budgeted to get any more in, other than $20 an hour for a policeman, and they can't get them in at that rate. So, the security of our neighborhoods is really at stake. We keep adding homes and adding neighborhoods and whatnot, without police and extra fire department and whatnot, we're in trouble, okay? One of the other things is that the highway to corridor system, as it was approved back in 2013 and the studies were done back then, we're still relying on that same study an awful lot. And to this day, Highway 55 is primarily a transport corridor for a lot of produce and stuff coming in and out of California, Nevada, and Oregon. It's a heavily traveled route for the trucks and stuff, and we're just adding more traffic to it. I don't know how many of you guys have traveled up and down Carter Boulevard during rush hour or during the holidays or any of that. The studies that they've done are bogus. You know, all the stuff that we see on paper right now is bogus. It takes me as much as a half an hour to get from my house to St. Luke's Hospital for a doctor's appointment on a normal day. And that's ridiculous. That's 4.5 miles to St. Luke's, and it takes me as much as a half hour to get there. And imagine emergency response, you know, coming from for hospitals and whatnot, coming from St. Luke's or whatever. They can't get through, and we're not planning on widening Karcher out for another 2.5 years or so. And even the plans that they have for Karcher are ridiculous. I've already lived in areas where they have the U-turn turnabouts, so we have right turn in, right turn out of the neighborhoods. And the way they're setting it up is a free-for-all, because there are no lights at those turnarounds. The areas that I lived in Utah where they had the turnarounds, there were lights to regulate those turnarounds, but that's not in the plan. So you're gonna have people making U-turns on a 2-lane highway so they can get back to the street they wanted to turn left on, so they can turn right onto that street. It's really complicated, but it doesn't work without extra lights and extra traffic control. So there's a whole lot of things going on. We're adding a whole lot of extra cars and population in these developments, but we're not taking care of the roads. So we're putting the cart before the horse. We're not fixing the highway system and stuff and the roads before we're adding all of this population and all these vehicles to the load. And obviously, you know, Highway 55 is a suicide highway. It's a death trap. There's so many accidents on that highway every year. It's ridiculous, and serious accidents. So that needs to be addressed before we keep building developments like this and allow them to go ahead and finish development when we haven't even got a highway or even side roads that can handle the capacity. I pull out onto Indiana sometimes, and it's backed up for over an eighth of a mile, where I have to sit through 2 to 3 lights just so I can turn left onto Karcher. And then going up Karcher, I've sat down there on Karcher towards Cleveland Boulevard and sat through as many as 6 rotations of lights just to get to the freeway. And that's the way it is now, but we keep adding more and more cars to that to the capacity, and it's just going to get worse. So like I said, we're getting the cart before the horse. We need to take care of our transportation situation first and stop building all these, adding more cars and adding more load to our roads and highways. Again, I appreciate the donation of the property for schools. That was one of my big things. But at this point here, one last thing, if I may. Security in our neighborhood. The entrances and exits to the development going to the 2 different neighborhoods. That's going to add traffic to our neighborhood. It also adds access to our walk paths and stuff that go right behind my house. I have a 4-foot fence on the backside of my house. So security becomes a big deal. We have allowed a whole big, you know, people outside of our own neighborhood now would have access to that 4-foot fence in my backyard, and it's a real temptation for people with sticky fingers. And I'm not saying we're inviting a subgrade population, but it is a concern of mine that the security of our properties are at stake, and we have to address that as well.
Thank you,
when we
Mr.
open that
Ashmore.
up. Thank you.
Next on the list is Debbie Ashmore, but she chose not to speak. Next up, who's checked that they would like to speak is Candace Couture.
Good evening. My name is Candace Couture. I'm at 16143 Lures Way, Caldwell, Idaho 83607.
Thank you.
We live in Quail Ridge, which is directly behind some of those new houses that are going in. I have several concerns. Most of them, biggest focus is the traffic that's going to be going through both neighborhoods. Indiana, right there, where those two access points are, that's not a lot of space between those access points and the light. So when there's traffic trying to get into that neighborhood or out, that's going to cause a lot of issues. And I also think that that's going to cause people to divert through that new neighborhood, through Lures Way, which is currently a really quiet neighborhood. Lots of families with little kids out playing in the road all the time. There's a playground over there. Montana is very dangerous trying to get to Montana through Karcher, so there's already going to be a lot of traffic cutting through our neighborhood, Lures Way, through Carlport Avenue or Carlport, cutting through Indiana. It's just going to create a lot of traffic in our neighborhood. Second of all, I don't believe that there is an acceptable amount of transition between our residential neighborhood. Single-family homes. It's a nice neighborhood, Quail Ridge. We just moved in 2018. There are newer, nicer homes. What I believe is CBH is going to be the developer of the new land, which interesting, they told us that they would not be developing that land in the future. Our biggest concern is you're taking a relatively quiet, low-density residential neighborhood, packing it full of families, 152 at least families moving in. And in this economy, and we've seen in our neighborhood, multiple families living in residences. So that's at least 152 families, most likely a lot more, packed in that little area. I don't know if you've ever been out there, but it's a lot smaller than it seems. So you really don't get a good perspective of that space just by looking at the plat. Second of all, Quail Ridge and the neighborhood to the north have very different style homes. The one to the north has, I believe, vinyl plank and stucco siding. It's a bit older neighborhood as compared to Quail Ridge. It's newer, has hard plank siding, masonry. It looks a bit nicer and more modern. So I'm curious as to how they're going to make those two meld with those different styles. And also, I echo the concerns of other people adding that many families into an area where we don't have the school system to handle it right now. Mostly, as an alternative, and I know that, we were kind of prepared that that would be developed at some point. Single-family homes that fit in with the most modern neighborhood, Quail Ridge, would, I think, be the most fitting for that space if it's going to be developed at all. I think that, the strategy here is that they're trying to fit as much in as they can, get the most profit, but it does not fit with the surrounding neighborhoods. And I do know that when this was first brought to the neighborhood, there was about 5 to 10 families that just up and moved because they got scared. They didn't want this apartments, townhomes going in right behind them, and they just left. And I feel like if this continues as it is, there's going to be a lot more families in our neighborhoods that are going to not want to have to deal with all the traffic that comes along with that and the added people, and they're going to move too. We've considered it. We're right on the boundary of where this is happening, and we don't want to have to have such a high amount of people running through our neighborhood. We've been in neighborhoods where there's a lot of traffic going through there. It's dangerous. It's not safe for little kids. And again, our neighborhood has many families with little kids that are out playing, so it's just a safety concern for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the list is Alan Padletier. Sorry if I mispronounced it, but you marked that you didn't want to speak, but you noted you were in opposition to this. Sure. Yep, you'll just have to come up.
So I pretty much echo what everybody else.
Add your name and address.
Okay, sorry. My name's Alan Pedlitsky. I'm at 16143 Lures Way, Caldwell, Idaho 83607. I think everybody's touched on the points that everybody's concerned about right now, the volume of traffic. One thing I did want to add to what everybody has said, the traffic that would be coming through Carlport Way right there, it either diverts up through Dietz on the right-hand side through the neighborhood or to the left up through Lures Way. There's one or two entrances to the Quail Ridge neighborhood on the west boundary of it or whatever off of Montana. And that road directly would just tie down. We live in the cul-de-sac that would be on the other side of the new development, but that would be the only incoming connection to the new neighborhood off of Montana. My biggest issue with that is where it directly connects through Carlport Way, where we may see an increase of traffic, is we have a playground across the street from that. So that's where the families are congregating. They're having their birthday parties, there's swing sets, slides, stuff like that out there. So that's the only other thing that I would add to what everybody else has echoed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up to speak is Marie Southboda. Did you want to speak? Okay. Say it again.
Joseph.
Joseph.
Yes.
Boda. So go ahead and finish your last name and your name into the address, please.
Joseph Boda, 15303, Rock Avenue, Caldwell. I want to answer your question that you asked the previous person. Where would we build this homes because it's increasing, a lot of population coming in? Well, Caldwell Boulevard has got a lot of eyesores and a lot of buildings that are dilapidated, boarded up and stuff. I think that would be a better suitable to, because you got both commercials you could do underneath commercial, and on top you could do apartments. It does suffice a lot of the need for apartments for housing. So instead of taking farmland, I could see them disappear faster than polar bears up north. Instead of taking farmland, reuse some of the stuff that it's a blight, to the community, and board it up in all, it just hasn't been developed, and develop that, to make the whole Caldwell more beautiful, instead of adding tall apartment buildings right next to residential homes that, like you said, you could look in somebody's backyard, if you have a 3-story high apartment. What's your sense of privacy at that point? You don't have that. So that would be my that's what I would look for. And also, they're doing the same thing right now in Caldwell downtown. They build a nice building, and with downstairs is commercial, upstairs is apartments. I had an eye on that. I'm not an architect, but I play one on TV. But that one, I had my eye on that thing, and I wished, I know some people might not agree, that they would put a Ridley's back there. Why do I have to drive 6 to 7 miles to a grocery store with all the houses that are going around, and there's no grocery stores around? The closest one, if I want to go to Albertsons, is all the way down in Caldwell. On that corridor, there needs to be, because there's a lot of homes being built, there needs to be a grocery store, and that was my spot for that. But anyway, and again, water. Last year we cut the water early. Where are we getting all this from? I'm not opposed. Growth will happen, but let's have a smart growth. I lived in different cities, and I lived across the world, and there's smart growth and there's not so smart growth that I've seen. So I'm not particularly fond of CBH, but I think the quality of the homes to me is in the architecture design of the homes. I think there's you see them all. It's all the same, from whether you look in the back or the front, just flipped. So if we build anything, let's build the beautiful Caldwell for the future, and to up a little bit the architecture designs of the buildings, not just, it's just good enough for Caldwell. That's why I see it. But I'm not necessarily totally in opposition. I don't live next to it, so I can't speak of that. But the growth, it is I think it's located in the wrong place for right now until at least 55 is enlarged and the traffic and situated and all that other stuff, but, that's my take on it. But for now, I'm opposed to it.
Thank you for that. Sure.
Just a real quick comment. I don't think farmland isn't getting stole from anybody. I mean, it's property owner rights, so if a farmer wants to sell, he's gonna sell to whoever he wants. I mean, that's not for anybody else to decide. So, but I'm just saying, nobody's going out stealing farmland. I mean, it's, somebody's gotta be willing to sell it too.
Thank you. You have to come up to the mic.
Okay, sorry. I have been here to the, to the railroad and stuff, and I'm very involved. I met with Joey Palmer from Valley View, and I talked to him a lot, and they need money. And I'm glad that they donate that parcel, but I think that, I'm glad that he took the step, because the other, developers, like the 500, they don't do anything. They don't contribute anything. Now, I know that they can't use the funds, I don't remember the name of it now, because it's against the Constitution, to use those funds for, like, I forgot the term, but,
like impact fee?
Yeah, yes, correct. I wish they would amend the Constitution so they could have some funds, they could have access to some funds instead of going every time to the, homeowners to pay and then also, again, on Sunny Slope, the farmers are fighting with, I'm not fighting, but I have to fight with developers because they want to come in and they want to develop the land. I mean, they want to enlarge and be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, but thank you. That was your 5 minutes. And then we have Phaedra Boda, marked as in opposition but didn't want to speak. So the last person here in opposition is Chris Carlisle. Would you like to speak? Please say your name and address into the mic, please.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Chris Carlisle, 14069 Santa Cruz Street, Caldwell, Idaho. And I stand in firm opposition simply because, well, 3 reasons. The first reason is that I have 2 cats, and they absolutely love catching mice in that field. And you're going to be taking that away from them. They're going to be very sad about that, and we don't want to offend the cats. In all seriousness, though, I represent the Kingsview HOA Board, and some of the homeowners in the Kingsview subdivision have expressed concerns about things like cars speeding through the neighborhood, folks coming in and checking the car doors and taking what they can find inside and things like this. And so the concern is that the connection would facilitate some of that activity. We've dealt with theft and vandalism in our area, and so that's certainly a concern. But recognizing that development is coming and you have to address that somehow, I asked the Commission to consider the change from the highway corridor to the residential 2 classification. I see a problem with the traffic on Indiana. When that gets backed up with the heavy traffic, it's backed up quite a ways. And on the south side, you have the connection to Indiana. That's going to end up causing traffic to get jammed up because you can't turn into it since the traffic's all backed up that far. So with the higher density, especially with the fourplexes, that's going to, I mean, that's that entrance that they're going to use and aggravate the problem. So I'd encourage you to consider a more realistic, maybe leaving it as corridor, highway corridor, or a lower density. The other concern that I would bring to the table is the commercial locations there. One of the things that I see with the commercial locations that are in front of the Valley View High School is that they were established and built and then they were left empty for years and years, and I think some of those locations are still empty. And what has the developer done to evaluate potential rental of those commercial properties? Or will they just
remain empty and eyesores. Will they be built according to the needs of the businesses that would occupy those? And what are those services, and are they desirable for the area? And if we're just building these, commercial locations, just hoping that somebody rents them, I'm very concerned that we'll regret that. And so I'd like to have some due diligence and make sure that the market would bear occupancy. And with that, I'll stand open for questions for the rest of my time, or cede it back to the chair.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, question for you.
Sorry.
Did you reach out to Chief Ingram or any of the police department about your theft and vandalism that happened in your neighborhood?
Oh, we report when we can. We encourage it. That's one of the problems, is that the more access, it's great for the fire department to come in and save a burning building. That I appreciate. However, that's got to be weighed with the access to folks who come in, and it becomes, our neighborhood becomes a target of opportunity. It's really easy to get in, and we do see that more of the crime happens towards those entrances. So adding an entrance indicates that those homeowners who might have been left with some sort of buffer are protected. Oh, and speaking of buffer, I believe the staff maybe gave an answer incorrectly on action item 1. You know how you guys send out that mailing and it has the shading that's 300 feet past? I don't think that's for landscaping use. And my wife and I are a little concerned because our house also gets chopped in half with that shading, and I sure hope you don't start landscaping in my living room.
Thank you for did you have an additional question?
My name on there, it's not wanting me to comment.
Did you sign up? Did I miss that? If I did, I'm sorry. Debbie Ashmore, I don't have her. Can I call? Was it on the wrong one?
Did I?
Go. Okay.
I just wouldn't like
I'm curious, and we can ask staff to address that. But if you did, go ahead, you'll say your name and address into the record, please.
Bruce Ashmore, 16265 Lures Way in Caldwell. I'm in the Quail Ridge subdivision. That gray area, from what I understand, is the 300-foot border where they send out notices for these kind of things, which I don't think is fair, because our whole subdivision is affected by this, but they're not notified of this, so they can come and voice their opinions and thoughts. I think notices ought to go out to everybody in those connected subdivisions. That 300 foot is kind of ridiculous to me. So I ditto the same concerns about the police, the fire, the school, and especially with the bond issues. I think that's awful nice of CBH to donate land, but I don't think we should be building homes without knowing where we're gonna have the schools and so forth. And we already know Valley View is overbooked, and there's no answer to it other than bond issues which keep failing. So we can't put it all back on us, the homeowners, every time they're getting a profit for building homes, okay? I don't see why they can't be a lot fee that goes for that kind of thing, for infrastructure, for schools. If you're gonna build housing for 10,000 people in Caldwell, then you need to support that with money from the builders. They can put on the lot fee to make that happen. You can't just put it on everybody that's been there before and expect that to not collapse at some point. I'm retired, a lot of the people in the community are retired, and we can't afford our property taxes to keep going up. And they won't if the bond issue passes, but that's wishing, that's hopeful wishing. That's not income. And other than that, the water and so forth that everybody else, I did all that. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ashmore. All right, that was the final person who signed up. So I will ask the applicant, so Ms. Layton, to come up for a rebuttal if she would like.
Good evening again. Thank you. For the record, Bonnie Layton with NV5 representing the project. I will try to go through each of the issues that have been raised this evening. A lot of them I have heard before. So the first concern is traffic. And if we have heard a lot of testimony this evening about Highway 55. I did present information to you regarding ITD's plans for the improvement of that. And actually in those design plans, it's kind of hard to read at this scale, but there's a good description of exactly what is going to go into that widening. Obviously, they understand that this is an area of growth and that they need to improve safety and traffic capacity along Highway 55. As for Indiana Avenue, I would defer to the city engineer, who I know works tirelessly on these plans to make sure that the city streets are sized appropriately and developed for capacity. As it relates to traffic also, we are required to do a traffic impact study. You see that in the staff report. That is part of the submittal that we are required to do. In that, there are recommendations that the traffic engineer has made, and there are requirements from the city in terms of frontage improvements, as well as requirements from ITD that we did accommodate. And we are in agreement with those. There are some requirements for turning lanes. Again, that's part of our development to help mitigate the traffic. We are improving our frontage and understanding that there's also a traffic mitigation fee that we have to contribute to, that the city has, that will be worked into development of various projects within the area. Police and fire, of course, those are city requirements to provide those services, and planning for this area. I believe that the comments received from staff that this area is projected for growth. There's, as I mentioned before, we are already nearly surrounded by city in this area, so we're not shoestringing services out. We're actually extending services in an orderly fashion for those services. Let's see. Water issues. Again, I will defer to the city engineer, as they have a very comprehensive master plan for water services for the entire city, where wells are located, where main lines are located or need to be upgraded or developed. I do want to speak. I happen to be a consultant on the project that one of the neighbors mentioned that was south of Lake Lowell. This was a couple years ago. And unfortunately, there was information out in the public and on the news that the aquifer was dropping. I want to be very clear on this, that the Idaho Department of Water Resources came and testified that they had been observing that aquifer and that it had actually been increasing. You can go back to the county commissioner testimony on that. The other thing that we heard from those residents was that they didn't have any water. It was later determined that there were 7 wells that had issues. 5 of them had collapsed. 2 of them had electrical issues. But that didn't get followed up in the public. So I want to be very clear that we take that very seriously as a community, as a developer as well. And so unfortunately, when there's misinformation out in the public, it continues to spread, even though there's newer, more updated information. I happen to know this because I worked on that project specifically. So that's why I want to address that, but I will defer water capacity issues to the city engineer, which of course it's the responsibility of the Public Works Department to make sure that this site can be served. Let's see, industry isn't here yet. I think Caldwell has done a phenomenal job. I think if you talk to your economic development director, every day it seems like, or every week, there is more businesses, more industry locating here. We are part of that puzzle. It is great to have jobs in Idaho. That means that our children and our grandchildren can graduate from high school and college and remain in our community because there's jobs. When I graduated from the University of Idaho, that wasn't the case. And now I'm back and I want my daughters to be able to graduate and be here. They also need a place to live. So it's great that we're building an economy in Caldwell. I think the city has done a phenomenal job of that. But the reality is, where are those folks going to live? Where are those teachers in the new schools that get built, or city staff positions that get added to, or that are open? If they have a house to live in, they can work here. They don't have to commute from other communities. Let's see. We're also at historic unemployment lows. So I went on the website for Department of Labor a few weeks ago. There were 10,000 jobs available just in this region. So again, looking at building community.
Ask you to
Yep.
wrap it up, please.
So styles of the homes, what we showed for architecture will be the similar architecture as Quail Ridge. Some of those homes were built as recently as 2018. So not very long before we submitted our application to continue this development.
All right.
Grocery store, there's one on Lake that was approved with a large PUD by Triple Dot Development. So that is further to the east, but there are developments coming in the community.
Thank you. All right, so with that, we will...
I move that we close public testimony.
Okay, there was a motion to close public testimony. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by, it was moved by Commissioner Larson and seconded by Commissioner Boutros. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, so we've heard a lot of testimony, so now is our time to discuss and make a decision as a commission what recommendation we would like to push forward to council. So.
I actually don't see too much wrong with it. It looks pretty good. It connects well with the neighboring. Oh, sorry. Is it on? Yep. Can you hear me now? Okay. I said I don't see too much. I said I like they put the multifamilies out to the outside and not up against the residentials. And the commercial, I mean, I think that's just gonna come as whoever rents those buildings out, but I don't have a problem with this one.
Others' thoughts?
Yeah, my only thought is that we possibly move the carport up north to the top area, top right corner, so that the entrance will be farther away, as that concern for being there turning left is going to be kind of a big deal because the cars do pile up. So that would be my suggestion to mitigate people turning in and out of this subdivision.
I'm sorry, the public testimony is closed, so we'll have to keep the discussion to the commission. But I might ask, whoever's running the, do you want to?
Through the chair, if I can just clarify, so Carlport Way to the north, that's a stub street provided to the adjacent subdivision, and that stub street was intended to provide connectivity to the south for safety and circulation. So that stub there's no way to move that stub because there's homes built to the north. Is that the stub you were referring to?
So I'm suggesting that stub just be moved up. All the streets still stay the same. That entrance is merely closed and grass, and then the top right, the northeast corner is now the entrance in that would go to that same portion.
I think he's talking about on Indiana, the one to the north, moving that up, right?
Yeah.
Am I correct?
If that was possible.
Point of clarification?
Yes, can I just ask, so there's two access points on Indiana, one that is below the out parcel and then one that is above the out parcel, is that correct?
That's what I think.
Yes.
So which access point, I don't know the names of the streets, which access point, the north one or the south one, are you proposing to relocate?
The north one to move up, so this one to move up to here. So the streets would still stay the same, this would just become green, this would become the entrance. Is that legally possible?
Yeah, we would have to look into that a little bit more. We want to make sure we're not conflicting with other access points further north or anywhere else. And so I can't tell you right here, right now, if that's going to be okay, but that's certainly something that we can look at.
Okay.
It looks like if you look, Dave, that Kings View Street, you're gonna make it almost exactly the same as what you're doing right there, moving it up. See the next subdivision up? I don't know if there's really, you see what I mean?
I do see what you mean. I just think that Indiana does get backed up a lot, very often, and this is super close to that light.
So if I can just speak to that a little bit, we did talk about, Karcher Road is an ITD highway that is gonna be widened. The reason why the traffic light is so slow on Indiana is because Karcher is currently a two-lane road, basically. And so in order for the state to keep the queuing on Karcher low, they have to have maximum green times along Karcher Road, and so that's backing up Indiana further. Once the corridor is improved and widened, then it's gonna accelerate the signal timing, and that should help mitigate the queuing on Indiana.
Okay.
Thank you. Other comments from commission?
Chair, if we can just remind the public to keep order in the audience, please. Thank you. I'm sorry, we've closed the public hearing. You need to.
Any other comments from commissioners?
So I sympathize with a lot of the testimony that we heard tonight, but compared to other developments we've seen, this one seems superior, and I don't see anything
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I haven't seen anything that gives sufficient cause to do any major changes or a denial.
And I would agree with this. I actually think this brings some things that we've talked about and asked from other, the school has a positive, there's a positive outcome for Valley View School Districts. I recognize maybe some of the views are gonna be impacted, but I would imagine the subdivision on the backside that saw the current buildings coming on probably said the same thing because they lost their views, and that's what happens with growth. I certainly know people that live near there and have had those same commentaries, and that's just what happens when growth occurs. And so I would be comfortable voting to recommend approval for this. So if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Fair. May I just remind you quickly, there is a special use permit with this one, so you'll have to address the motion the same way as you did the previous one.
This one, right?
So make a motion based on the record of evidence, finding of facts, and conclusion of law, the Planning and Zoning Commission hereby order the case ANN 22-000022 and CPM 22. We are in the wrong one?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Numbers.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Redo.
We're good.
I make a motion based on the record and evidence of finding of facts and conclusion of law, the Planning and Zoning Commission hereby orders the case ANN 21-000014, CPM 21-00002, and SUB 21-00041 is hereby recommended for approval, and SUP 21-0000015 is hereby approved with the conditions outlined in the staff report.
There was a motion made by Commissioner Harmon. Is there a second?
With a question, do we want to add anything regarding moving the entrance on Indiana to the northern end of this development?
I don't think so.
Okay, second.
Okay, and so then there was a second by, Commissioner Boutros. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Harmon,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Boutros,
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes. Thank you. All right, so now we're moving on to our next action item. Public oh, do I just close the public hearing? Okay, so I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Harmon, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Larson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, sorry, now we're moving on to the next public hearing, which is a quasi judicial case number CMP 22000012, ZON 22000005, AMD 2207, Legacy Falls. A request by BVA Development on behalf of BV Legacy Falls LLC as a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from CS Commercial and Service to HDR High Density Residential on the southern half parcel of R328222011A0 to include approval of resolution number 442-22 associated with CMP 22-000012. Concurrently, the applicant is requesting a rezone on, a rezone of the southern half of the parcel, R328222011A0, from C1 neighborhood commercial to R3 high density residential to include approval to terminate the original development agreement DA-01-020 and approve a new developmental agreement associated with parcel R328222011A0 and applications AMD 22-22-07 and ZON 22-000005. The proposed development in Legacy Falls will include approximately 13.8 acres of commercial property for office and flex space and approximately 5.2 acres of residential three-story condominiums. The subject property is located at the southeastern intersection of South Florida and Carter Road in Caldwell, Idaho. With that, staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Elizabeth Allen, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, Caldwell. The last hearing before you this evening is Legacy Falls. So the property is located on the south side of Carter Road, approximately 900 feet east of the Florida Avenue and Carter Road intersection. Before I move on, I just want to clarify the property that's highlighted in red is the parcel that they're requesting to rezone in the comprehensive plan map amendment. The larger site, it extends, so on the northern half, there's some development directly to the west. So the development agreement would cover that entire, let me see if I can point to it.
That section?
Okay, so our engineer is pointing, so it would cover the red highlighted part and the part that he is showing on the screen. And that will be what the development agreement covers. Okay, so for the applicant request, the applicant is requesting a comprehensive plan map amendment on approximately 5 acres from the commercial and service to a high density residential. So that's 5 acres on that southern tip. You can see the line shown on the screen in the image. Yeah, thank you. So they are also requesting a rezone on that same 5 acres from C1 neighborhood commercial to R3 high density residential. No development is proposed at this time. It's strictly just a rezone. In addition, they're requesting a termination of the original development agreement, which was approved in the 90s, to be replaced with an updated development agreement to reflect changes that have occurred in the city and the changes that they're requesting. And staff has provided you with an updated development agreement. The development agreement that was included in the staff report has been changed just with legal discussions with our legal team, and it changes kind of the legal language that's in the beginning of the development agreement. None of the conditions were changed, and that was provided to you. So for the character of the area, the image on the screen shows the site. So we have residential and commercial in the area, and there's some fragmented farmland. There's a full analysis shown on page 4 of the staff report, and then I'll go over the next few slides. Will cover site photos for context. So this is looking north and northeast at the subject property from the southern boundary. And then we're looking northeast and southeast from the southern boundary. So this is that tip of the property, that southern part. And this is looking west, northwest from the southern boundary, and then the image on the right is looking west, southwest from the site of Legacy Subdivision Number 1, and that's that extension that we were just discussing on the screen. So public services and utilities are available and will be provided to serve the site at the time that it develops. And a full analysis is provided on page 6 of the staff report. For the Caldwell Fire Department, it's within the 3-mile fire risk area. For the 2040 comprehensive plan, the property is located, designated as a commercial and service. And then it's surrounded by, you see, the highway corridor, as well as residential to the south and some more commercial to the north. For agency comment, Valley View School District responded with general school information. Idaho Transportation Department provided comments saying that they had no concerns at this time, but will require a traffic impact study when the site develops. Caldwell Fire Department provided requirements, as well as Caldwell Engineering Department, and that has been incorporated into the conditions of approval and the development agreement. So for the staff analysis, we found that the proposal is compatible with the existing character of the area, and the proposal would transition the commercial along Karcher Road, and then transitioning to residential to the south, and then you have the existing residential to the south, so it would be a good transition from the area. Public services and facilities are available to the site, and staff is recommending approval of the request with a subject to conditions of approval. And I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff from the commission?
I have a question.
Commissioner
Because,
excuse me.
oh, sorry. Because there's no development planned, it seems difficult to assess the suitability of the rezone. So it's commercial now, looking for the high-density residential, and it would have been helpful to have more information about how the property is to be developed to make an assessment on the suitability of the rezone.
Sure, through the chair, Commissioner. So I'll let the applicant speak to that. Because it's a rezone, it's hard to know if they develop the site or if they sell it and someone else develops the site, what that will look like. So that's why we didn't add any additional information about site plans to allow that flexibility for the developers at that time.
Thank you. Other questions for staff? All right, I would ask Mr. Ancolas to come on up, the applicant or representative.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Garrett Nancolas. Business address is 1144 South Silverstone in Meridian. However, 60-plus year resident of the city of Caldwell. I just want to thank the staff for their assistance in getting us to this point. There's been a lot of discussion regarding both the application as well as the development agreement and conditions. And I would just like to say that we are in full support of the development agreement, the changes. As noted, one of the requests was to change, or to eliminate a really old development agreement that really wasn't even pertinent to the property. Codes have changed, the environment of development has changed, and so we just didn't think that that old development agreement was pertinent to the situation, and we certainly wanted to comply with current codes and current conditions that are existing in the city of Caldwell and along that corridor. The second thing, and again, I appreciate your question, Commissioner Boutros, and I will answer that real quick, but I'd like to just give a real quick background of what BVA is. And they talked me out of retirement, and I'm honored to be a part of their group. BVA, Ball Ventures Alquist, who is also representing for BVA LLC Legacy Falls, is a developer that acquired this property, or has been involved in this about 4 years is all, and as you know, it has not to this date developed. However, BVA is a very active developer. North Ranch is a BVA project, the new location for, DNB Supply. You see all the buildings that are going up there, well over 1 million feet of proposed and current, industrial, as well as all that commercial along that corridor. Exit 29 really didn't have much commercial until Ball Ventures Allquest got involved with that 119-acre piece of property. And as you know, Caldwell needed commercial at that location. That's the kind of developer they are. The current property that we're talking about, Legacy Falls, is on the southeast corner of Karcher and Florida. This is a great location, and there's a lot of activity out there. However, because market conditions have changed some, both with interest rates, availability of product, things like HVAC, steel, those things place a lot of unknowns in the market. So that's why we are here requesting a rezone without any preliminary plat or plat associated with it, because we don't know what the market conditions and interest rates are going to do. However, the reason we requested the rezone on that south piece of the parcel is, if you look at those pictures in the beginning, there's already some high-density residential in the area. And in our opinion, and also I think staff's opinion, this is a nice blend, a nice buffer between commercial, instead of taking commercial clear down into the middle of some of the existing residential, is to have a buffer and a transition with R3 that blends into the commercial. Therefore, you have accessibility from a pedestrian standpoint. You have a place where we can live, work, and play. And the pedestrian is really important in this area, as you said, because in order to get to this area, you don't want to have to get out on Florida, go to 55, and then find your way back in, or some other way. So, connectability is something that we really looked at, with residential on the bottom, connecting into the commercial on the north side. I don't want to take a lot of time. We agree with the staff report. We agree with the conditions. We agree with the development agreement. But there are a couple things, if I may, may I approach Mr. Chair and give you a copy of this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I know that this is already in your staff report, but I did want to just highlight a couple of things. I'm sorry, I'll let you go ahead and...
We'll just enter this into the record as PZ 1000.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
On the second page, and I've highlighted it all in yellow, I just wanted to touch base on a couple things that I think are really important in the decision-making process. Again, the approval criteria means that we need to be in compliance with the comp plan and with the general conditions and plans for the city of Caldwell in that area. And so I've identified a couple things that I would like to draw to your attention to, but there are several things that I really think are important in the policies in the comprehensive plan. The first highlighted one in Chapter 4, Economic Development, this is on page 3. Goal 3, to create neighborhoods where citizens can live, work, and play. That is exactly what we're talking about here, with the opportunity for residential mixed in with commercial walkability. That's what those kind of transition points would be. The second thing is to ensure that an adequate inventory of commercial and industrial property is available for new industries. Obviously, this is commercial, so the industry doesn't come into play here. But BVA and people that they work with, whether it's us that develop it or some partner that we sell it to, they have connection with really good users. And so this is an opportunity to bring some commercial to that area. As you know, 55 is a really good corridor for commercial, and that is the goal of the city, to develop that corridor as commercial. And again, so that we have some commercial there, so people don't have to drive 5, 6, 7 miles, 10 miles, or wherever they need to go. Chapter 5, Land Use Policy 1.2, encourage commercial and industrial uses in the areas that are readily accessible to regional and principal arterials. That is key here. I mean, this Highway 55, and by the way, I just checked with Caleb Lakey, construction on 55 is to begin in '24. It is a 5-lane corridor with signals at each mile intersection. And then, of course, the turnarounds, there's right in, right outs at the half miles. However, you have to go to a light and then make a U-turn and come back to those. So it balances the traffic plan, and they've been working on this for many, many years. There's been a lot of input from the community. And so that's the way safety is being considered by ITD, and of course the community's had input into that as well. So that is moving forward, at least as of a text about 15 minutes ago from Caleb Lakey. It's supposed to begin in 2024. And then I'll skip down just a little bit, at the bottom of the page, finding the proposed rezone of the southern portion of the subject property is in conformance. That's important, that staff has made that observation and made that recommendation that this indeed is in conformance with the 2040 plans and policies as mentioned above. The last thing I want to do is, you'll turn to the last page, and I think this is important. We did hold the resident, or the neighborhood meeting. Nobody came to the meeting. We have had no comments from the public. I don't think there's anyone signed up in opposition this evening. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that we have gone through those steps, and we would ask for your approval, and I stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Nancolis from the commission?
I live in Cedar Crossing, so, I mean, I know how, if that goes into high residential, that all worked real well with the Cedar Crossing townhouses anyway, so.
Yeah.
And some of that commercial already out on the front.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, the other thing too, part of the conditions that we're supposed to do in this development agreement is to improve crossings over Phyllis Canal.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not inexpensive, but they're needed, right? And so those are things that we've agreed to in that development agreement. I think they were comments from the engineering department, and we are certainly understand those and are willing to make sure that those crossings and that regional, or should I say, in this case, the neighborhood regional transportation system is complete.
Thank you. Other comments for Mr. Nancolis?
Not for the applicant, but I do have a question for staff that may end up getting a hybrid answer.
All right, go ahead.
Is there another opportunity when application is made for the development where a plat is provided, and is there an opportunity at that time to look at the appropriate density, or once it's approved tonight is the die cast?
Chair, Commissioner, so that's, there's a lot of speculation with that, not knowing what the developer at the time would want to do with that residential. They might want to do something that requires a special use permit, they might not. They most likely will want to plat, so that would come forward. But we can't speculate on, there's just too many things to consider.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and if I may attempt just a little bit at that, and I agree completely with Elizabeth. The time for review, again, is when the plat does come in, and in 99% of the circumstances, I would guess that this would have to be platted. So at that time when the plat comes in, that is, again, a chance for the community, for the neighborhood, for this commission, as well as the city council, to review that plat, place conditions if there are additional conditions that need to be placed on the plat itself. So I think that there's plenty of review opportunity. It's just that this gives us the ability to plan for the future, knowing what the options are, and if I may say so, if us or somebody else develops it, it gives them the opportunity to put together and know that it is going to be R3 or what the zoning is going to be, so that they can plan a nice development that blends together. But knowing that up front is really important to the overall vision and process from a development standpoint.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Oh.
Sure, may I add something that I didn't address earlier? So the one change to the development agreement that I didn't touch on is we removed JDL Investments. They own these two lots that are developed in the kind of like that middle, kind of like a donut, an odd-shaped donut. Those two lots that are already developed are not owned by BV Legacy Falls anymore. So we worked with, we've been working with the applicant and with our legal team on how to approach that, because you need property authorization and so on. So those two lots will be removed from that development agreement that we provided to you. So I just wanted to get that on the record before you closed public testimony.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think there's a dentist office there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right, Haley? I'm sorry. I believe there's a dentist office and a parking lot, and I think that's about it. Is that correct, Mr. Harmon?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments for Mr. Nancolis? All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. And I have a Haley Hart that signed up to speak in favor.
Hi, Haley Hart. I have to apologize, first of all. I am not as articulate as Garrett Nancolis, so please bear with me. I'm at 1144 South Silverstone Way with BVA. Similar to Garrett, however, I am a resident here in Caldwell. And I think that everything that has been said, both by Mr. Nancolis and by staff, I am in agreement with. I would just add, I am a civil engineer with BVA, and so I've been going through many iterations of site planning for this project, specifically for the question of what is that residential area going to look like. I know it's challenging to agree to rezoning something that you don't see the plan for. We looked at having that area commercial. However, as you can see, with that area being an L, essentially just 180 degrees rotated, that little corner sliver, that's south, that's right there along with the residences, having a commercial, trying to force commercial there right up against the residences, whether for the community or for site planning or for access, it didn't function well. And so regardless of having that site plan really cleaned up and ready to present to staff tonight, we just wanted to move forward with that being residential because that's what functions well and that's what works well with the community, and that's what we want to ensure that we're bringing to Caldwell as a product that works. So that's all I would have to add. Thank you.
All right, any questions, comments? All right, thank you. That goes back to Mr. Nancolis. Do you have any final comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may add just
Please.
some housekeeping
Mhm.
before we end. So the development agreement that was provided to you earlier, that's going to be for exhibit numbers.
Mhm.
That's going to be PZ 1000, and the document that Mr. Nancolis provided would be PZ 1001.
Okay, so, okay, thank you. All right, so, there's nobody else, that asked to speak, so with that, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Moved by, Commissioner Boutros. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Larson. Excuse me, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we, have closed public testimony. Discussion from commissioners.
I think it's good to approve.
Yeah.
My
agree.
page won't load, so I can't read it.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay, it seems very straightforward to me as well. So I have the prompt, who would like to do it? Start, right there.
Too many zeros in the.
Based on the record and evidence, findings of fact, and conclusions of law, the Planning and Zoning Commission hereby orders that case AMD 22-07, CPM 22-000012, and ZON 22-000005 for Legacy Falls is hereby approved with the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you. There was a motion by Commissioner Boutros. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second from Commissioner Harmon. All right, roll call, please.
Harmon.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Boutros.
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes. Thank you. So we do have to make a motion to close public hearing? So I'd entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Oh, Chair, one last question. Staff, do we have to read all the zeros? It's my last question, then we'll go. It's a legal question.
That's a good question, and I would anticipate that we do
I'm-
not have to read
Well,
all
I'm hearing
the
from the
zeros.
city
What do
clerk,
you
yes,
think?
for the record.
Yes, for the record, yes. Staff can look at, the point of a zero is as a placeholder in the event that you get into that digit place with the number of applications.
Okay.
The
Thank you.
chances of having 999,000 zoning applications may justify the removal of a few unnecessary zeros on future application numbers, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, motion to close public, hearing.
So moved.
There's a motion by, Commissioner Larson.
I second it. No.
Second by but I think I heard Commissioner Harmon first. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, I think that takes us to the end. So I need to make a motion to adjourn? Yep. Or entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Harmon, a second by Commissioner Boutros. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.